very big welcome to everybody looking at us here now. Thank you for staying with us. This is WESN. This is the program for today, November 21st, 2022. I'm Andy Johnson. Let's tell you what's happening. We will be talking in a moment from now with Mr. Keith Scotland. Of course, he's a member of Parliament for Port of Spain South on the crime situation in the country, focusing on the fact that a national security arrangement was supposed to have been put in place in the Parliament to discuss why we're in that situation as we are today. We're also talking with Dr. Wayne Kubla-Singh. He's an environmentalist and a social activist and an author. It has to do with a new sort of aspiration for a transportation vehicle in Trinidad and Tobago. By that we mean a transportation plan for the country. We've been there before. We are there again. Not sure to what extent this will solve the problems of national transportation across the country. And then in the second hour, we're talking with Mr. Kenneth Listrop. He's the founder and musical director of an organization known as the Trinidad and Tobago Youth Philharmonic, teaching young people classical music. He and his brother have been in this for some time. We will get an update as to where it's at with that. These things and more in the program. Of course, we take you around the region. We tell you where we will stop in Grenada and Barbados and among other places. But for now, we will take a break and come back in a moment. Stay with us. We're just getting going here on this edition of the program.
Fan Zone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today. The newest book is here, Closer to the Church, the debut novel by author and former mayor Louis Lee Singh. Available at all the home store branches, Barataria, West Mall, Shogunas and C3 San Fernando. Paper-based bookshop 10 Nook Avenue, St. Anne's. WESN 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook. Metropolitan Bookshop, Ariapita Avenue, Woodbrook, and all RIK bookstores nationwide. Available online as paperback on Amazon.com and Kindle for e-readers. For more info, call 628-5835 or 389-6504. Also available from author Louis Lee Singh, I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters, and Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People.
Make every occasion a sparkling celebration with Rosabella alcohol-free wine.
Toast cheers with hourglass rings. Rosabella, live life with Rosabella sparkling drink. Celebrate!
At Belgroves, celebrating life is our commitment with integrity, compassion, and dignity for your loved ones. Belgroves Funeral Home and Crematorium, serving Trinidad and Tobago for over a century.
Whether it's a room for 1, 2, 3 or more, there's a room waiting with the ocean view almost to your door. Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, the perfect getaway when you don't want to travel far. The Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, Crown Point, Tobago. Call 639-8571 for your reservation.
Your Christmas is safe with us. FBC Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union. Your Christmas is safe with us. FBC Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union.
Get an easy zero-interest Christmas loan at Police Credit Union today. Borrow up to $25,000 with affordable monthly payments. New members, you get up to $10,000. No interest, no installments until January. Apply online at www.policecreditunion.com. Loan subject to credit approval.
Welcome back to the program. Let's just tell you this as we get into our first discussion. The Parliament's National Security Joint Select Committee held a virtual public meeting on November 9th. That's a couple of weeks ago. Within recent times, two of its members, Oropuch East MP Dr. Rudal Munilal and the opposition Senator Jayanti Lakshmidhyal, they have called on the committee to meet urgently to question officials from law enforcement agencies about the state of crime in the country. In a signed letter dated October 26 to Munilal and Lakshmi Dayal. The chairman of the committee, the Joint Select Committee in the Parliament, Keith Scotland, reminded them that when the committee last met on October 25th, it agreed to conduct an investigation into the factors that contribute to the prevalence of illegal firearms and gun violence in the country. He said, given the compatibility of the current inquiry with your request, the committee may be willing to consider using the opportunity to interrogate the issues raised in the correspondence at the earliest opportunity. That's what we're talking in this edition of the program with that chairman, Mr. Scotland, attorney at law, member of parliament. Good to see you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Johnson. Good to see you also.
All right, so let's talk about that. You say that given the compatibility of the current inquiry with the request from these two opposition MPs, one in the House and the other in the Senate, you want to consider using the opportunity to interrogate the issues raised in the correspondence. Let's talk about that. So what are the issues they raise and why you welcome it?
The issues raised in the correspondence really touched and concerned, if you drill down into it, the prevalence of gun-related crime. And at the time of the receipt of the correspondence from the Member of Parliament and the Senator, the Joint Select Committee on National Security had already scheduled a meeting and had on its agenda that a topic that was sibling to those concerns. And in fact, we had canvassed a meeting for the 26th of October, but we, not having received the submissions from all the stakeholders, and of course that was in the throes of the budget debate, we were not able to hold the meeting on that day. But if you note, we were written to on the 25th of October,
yes.
And by the 26th there was a response. And of course, being a committee with other members, of course, we had to canvass who would appear before the committee. So all of that happened within a very short space of time, and we were able to hold a Joint Select Committee meeting on the 9th of November and have an interrogation into very sad issues, and we interrogated no other person than the Honourable Minister of National Security, Mr. Fitzgerald Hines.
What can you tell us about that interrogation, if you call it that?
It was a public inquiry, and I'd want to invite the public to join those inquiries, log in on it, because they're very topical, particularly an issue of crime which affects all of us. And that public inquiry lasted more than about 2 hours and 15 minutes, and all members had an opportunity, including members Lakshmi Dayal and Munilal, to ask the Minister of National Security questions and issues concerning or raised in the letter written to me as chairman. And all other members were able to ask questions. Member Paul Richards, Member Kennedy Richards, Member Ayana Webster-Roy, Member Randall Mitchell. All members were able to raise issues with the Minister of National Security, and those issues were interrogated. I myself raised certain issues, and they were interrogated and dealt with.
I saw some of it, but I mean, what was would there be ringing declarations made, there resolutions agreed to as to how we move forward with trying to solve this problem?
Well, I was very enthused by the fact that as part coming out of that Joint Select Committee meeting, the committee established unanimously 2 subcommittees, particularly the one that I am chair of, which deals with the ports and points of entry in Trinidad and Tobago, because as you would be well aware, a gun doesn't just appear, a firearm, an illegal firearm, just does not appear out of the blue. It will have to, we don't manufacture them in Trinidad and Tobago, so they would have to come in through ports. And that subcommittee will look at ports and certain points of entry, and that to me was a positive coming out of it.
So that is, if we have to put a ranking on the contributing factors to crime in the country, the question of the ease with which firearms comes into the country, that probably is item number one.
I would surmise that without having the empirical data, but looking at the types of crimes, some of them, particularly the violent crimes and the murders, I would say, based on it, that it doesn't take much to form an inference that is one of the major factors.
Right, and I think in the reporting from that, from what I saw, somebody was saying that there's a conclusion that whereas in some cases people talk about the fact that there are no scanners at the ports, the official ports in the country, and that is a contributing factor. I think somebody said, and I think there was large agreement on this, that in many cases firearms and so on don't come through the established ports, the regulated ports, and there are many points of entry into the country that don't get attention for one reason or the other. They're anywhere around the country where people can come in, they come in, and those are the routes principally through which firearms and other illicit stuff come into the country.
I'm sure that the relevant intelligence agencies would look into that, but I would have to agree, because the corollary to that would have to be, Mr. Johnson, that persons are coming with illegal firearms through the normal ports in their suitcases or in their packages, and that will not be so. That is counterintuitive. So there is an issue of the entry in by or through unconventional means from these places. So that's a serious issue.
Yeah, so what are some of the provisions being made, if that is possible? Okay, given that as a factor, that guns continue to come into the country, the question is what are the mechanisms by the crime-fighting people to cut them off at source, so to speak, and so they don't get into the hands of people? And then, what is the intelligence saying about the relationship between the availability of firearms and the proliferation of gangs and gang activity in the country?
Well, that was also an issue that was touched on. It would very much be helpful if support would have been gleaned from the opposition with respect to the beefed up gang legislation that was brought to Parliament, Sir John. So you would be aware that did not occur. So in terms of the fight against gangs, that is something that we don't have fully in our arsenal. As part of the meeting, I recall that the minister laid out plans by the agencies as far as he could have without divulging anything that would act as a tip-off. But he did engage in some and drill down to some particulars of certain things that will be done by the agencies. But what I can tell you is the establishment of that subcommittee to look at ports of entry, that is a serious and a very, it's a telling establishment that may very well assist in the reduction of the entry into Trinidad and Tobago of illegal firearms.
Because in 2013, this country became a signatory to a decision taken by members of the UN, something called the Arms Trade Treaty, and that was supposed to have been effective in addressing this issue. It has not operated successfully on that account. Do you know why? Is there any sense as to why?
I can't tell you why. I suppose the Commissioner of Police may be able to deal with that in more detail. But what can be said is that there must be, and there is a will to have a serious reduction in gun-related crime and gun-related activity. And that is why this inquiry was held in that form, and I can tell you that it's ongoing because there will be other stakeholders who will have to appear before us, and that will be in a very short space of time. If not this, in fact, we do intend to have another meeting before the end of this month to continue that inquiry. So it is ongoing.
You in a position to say who those other people might be?
It will be the stakeholders such as customs, which is part of it, the police, the commissioner of police, and those and other entities like that, but particularly customs, immigration, commissioner of police, police service.
To what extent you can bring your perspective on this? So we have anti-crime legislation in the country. It is illegal to belong to a gang in Trinidad and Tobago. It is illegal for gangs to exist in Trinidad and Tobago. But, I mean, you hear senior police officers, the commissioner down, this one, the previous one, ones before them, talking about their sense of the information they pick, the intelligence they have about the existence of gangs, how many gangs there may be, and what takes place in gang activity in the country. What is about the reality that it is possible for gangs to continue to exist and for people to continue to be members of gangs when it is illegal to do that?
First thing I would say is that the legislation needs to be beefed up to give the crime fighting, the police, to give the state more teeth and more power. That's the first thing. The second, of course, Mr. Johnson, is that you would be well aware that as part of the prosecution of gangs, evidence is required. And that is a process that is in depth. That's a process that will, of course, involve resources by the police. It will involve surveillance. And I think that it is ongoing. And we do not want a situation as happened by 2010, where persons are charged with being members of gangs, and there isn't enough information, there isn't enough evidence, and they're subsequently freed and then subsequently sue the state for malicious prosecution, false imprisonment, etc. So we need to have, and I am, from where I sit, there is the gathering of that information to bring the evidence so that when persons are charged, there is enough evidence to secure evidence beyond reasonable doubt, because as you are well aware, that is the standard of proof that is required before criminal court.
Yeah, but we're talking 2010, 2013, with if you talk about the state of emergency then, and people were picked up on, yes, on those suspicions and so on. It's 2022. So you're saying it's...
No, well, what I'm saying, Mr. Johnson, is you want to learn from that experience and ensure that it does not reoccur as we move forward.
Yeah, but what I mean, so it's almost 10 years since that happened, and so the collection of the means by which we improve, and this is the investigators and people who do that. It is a decade between then and now, and so the capacity for getting the information, getting the evidence, it's a crawl, wouldn't you say?
I wouldn't say it's a crawl. I would say when, as we hasten to do it, and we must and we are, we just have to ensure that once you bring a charge, that you have the evidence, bearing in mind the requisite standard of proof, which is that beyond a reasonable doubt. But more and more importantly, you would find that persons are being charged. And you would find also, because we go back to what the inquiry was, it was relative to the prevalence of gun-related violence and gun-related offenses. And that also includes intelligence gathering. So the reference is with respect to learning from the past, but certainly beefing up the future. And I would say, and I would just say, it is from the context, if you recall how why we are here today is in the context of interrogating that from the point of view of the Joint Select Committee on National Security. So there are others who may be able to speak in more detail to what is happening. And that may very well happen when we have our meeting. And I can actually, as we are here, see if I can give you the date for that meeting. I think it is and will be on the 30th of November.
All right,
where we continue that inquiry.
All right, so this is an ongoing process as we speak.
It is an ongoing process, and the process is not being relinquished.
All right, I just want to segue a little bit into some stuff I read over the weekend about your involvement and participation in that. I was going to call it an inquiry or an interrogation. This situation regarding the procurement legislation and the man in charge of that. And in the reporting, I stumbled upon the part where the presiding officer in the parliament sort of challenged you on the basis of how you were challenging him, Mr. Lalchan, and she said, well, this is not an interrogation in the kind of way that you were seeking to.
It was not a cross-examination.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, It wasn't a cross-examination, Mr. Johnson. What it was a robust inquiry, because what happened there, even though the legislation was passed in both houses, there were certain. No, it was passed this year.
Okay, in that particular piece of legislation.
But yes, but there are certain red flags and concerns raised by stakeholders who would be involved in the operationalization of the legislation. And in that regard, there was a difference of approach, because even in light of the concerns raised, the Office of the Procurement was saying, well, proclaim it and let us see how it works.
Right. Yeah.
And I was saying, well, no, don't do that, because that will create it will literally create a can of worms. Let us deal with the issues raised, the concerns raised with respect to the stakeholders who are involved in the operationalization, and thereafter proclaim it, because it makes no sense and it will only redound not to the benefit of the implementation and the proper implementation of the legislation. And particularly, one of the concerns that was raised by one of the stakeholders is the concept of separation of powers, and the fact that there may be an issue there. Now, that is very critical, because if any legislation is challenged on the basis of separation of powers and successfully challenged, you would go back to the locus classicus, which is Hines and the Queen, a 1977, I think, decision of the Privy Council, where it totally it obliterated the existence of the gun court in Jamaica based on the doctrine of separation of powers. So I was just trying to interrogate in a robust way, the procurement office on that issue and other issues, and of course the chairman, as the chair and the repository of how the inquiry would be conducted, felt that there would be an intervention because maybe the inquiry was too robust. But I didn't think it was. It was an earnest inquiry, and based on the concerns raised by the stakeholders and the approach, well, proclaim it and let us see how it works, even in light of the concerns raised.
Yeah, because I mean, in one sense, he's been in the position, but not being able to carry out his mandate for a long time. I think he's been around the country meeting with all kinds of groups and organizations and even individuals who have been calling for such a mechanism in the country, and he's got to the point now where, I mean, to me, he was being expressing exasperation there. And so he's saying, well, let it proclaim the thing, and as it goes along, let's see what happens. Let's see what the challenges are. But you're saying that is not a correct way to go.
I wouldn't say so in light of the red flag. So you are going down a road, and the persons in charge of the road is saying to you, well, don't go down further because there are potholes there, and there are potholes that will bring your car right down or send it over a precipice. And to me, and I really hope I don't misrepresent the approach or in any way trivialize the concerns of the Office of Procurement, is saying, well, let's continue to go down that road in light of the concerns raised and see how it works. Then let me give you one example. In the legislation, that was passed, but has not been proclaimed as yet because of these red flags.
Right.
You would have the someone who's challenging having 5 bites at the cherry to challenge a process. You may have, if what is being said and was said by the Office of Procurement, persons who are simple contractors, but if you're not registered with the Board of Inland Revenue, if you're not certified, you will not be able to get one contract from the state. How does that affect fledgling businesses, particularly in the constituency of Port of Spain South, where persons may have legitimate businesses but are not yet up to the speed where they are registered for taxes, registered for VAT, have all the criteria, but they're legitimate. They may very well be they will have to pay their income tax once they earn over a certain level. But, that is a concern that is there, the concern of you having 2 bites of the cherry before the Office of the Procurement, before the board, and then going to court, the High Court, for judicial review potentially, then going to the Court of Appeal if the decision goes against you, and then finally going to the Privy Council if the decision in the High Court goes against you. So these are concerns these are red flags that are raised with the operationalization of the legislation.
Right.
Now remember, Mr. Johnson, it has been passed, so the will is there.
All right, but let me see if I can appropriate the term you used a while ago, the legal term. Is this then not a kind of locus classicus about how difficult it is to get things going in the country? We have to, and a lot of us don't understand it in the way in which there's a gap between decision and implementation, and we're just having this illustration as to why that is the case sometimes. So is this an example of why a lot of us don't understand? So we pass a law, but we can't put it in effect because there are all these things to be taken care of before it is sort of foolproof, before it's easy to punch holes in?
I wouldn't say that you can't put it into effect. What I would say is that based on the red flags and the concerns raised, it very well may be that before it's put into place, you look at the concerns raised, address them, and then put them into place. There's always a saying in this regard, you hasten slowly, you get it right, or you try as far as is reasonably practicable to get it right, and then you put it into place. But I want to go back to the fundamental principle that it was brought to Parliament by this government and it was passed. So it's now a question of proclamation. I know that there are certain concerns that are with the Office of the Honourable Attorney General, and that office is addressing these concerns so we can have the legislation proclaimed.
All right, so the glass is half empty or half full in your view on it?
The glass, from my vantage point, is always half full, and in this regard, it is more than half full because it is just the concerns raised. So, for example, if you take the approach of the Office of the Procurement, you say proclaim because it's already passed. So it's more than half full.
All right, we're gonna have to leave it there, but thank you very much.
You're very welcome, sir.
Mr. Keith Scotland, attorney and member of Parliament for Port-au-Prince South. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we take a taste of what's happening around the region before we get with our next discussion. But stay with us. This is AM Prime on this day. The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
At Belgroves, celebrating life is our commitment with integrity, compassion, and dignity for your loved ones. Belgroves Funeral Home and Crematorium, serving Trinidad and Tobago for over a century.
Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. Police Credit Union. Your Christmas is safe with us at PCU. Police Credit Union. PCU. Police Credit Union.
Get an easy zero-interest Christmas loan at Police Credit Union today. Borrow up to $25,000 with affordable monthly payments. New members, you get up to $10,000. No interest, no installments until January. Apply online at www.policecreditunion.com. Loan subject to credit approval.
Whether it's a room for 1, 2, 3 or more, there's a room waiting with the ocean view almost to your door. Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, the perfect getaway when you don't want to travel far. The Cocoa Reef Resort and Spa, Crown Point, Tobago. Call 639-8571 for your reservation.
Make every occasion a sparkling celebration with Rosabella alcohol-free wine.
Toast cheers with hourglass rays. Rosabella, live life with Rosabella sparkling drink. Celebrate.
Living in victory every day.
Inspire, motivate, encourage, hope. It's about topical issues. It's about everything that you would want to know about hope, about life. At the end, you're going to say, yes, if he can do it, I can do it too. If she can, I can do it too.
No matter what they say, living in victory every day.
Nicole Lawson Live, living in victory every day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
Welcome back. Our next guest is Dr. Wayne Kublal Singh. He's listed here as an environmentalist, a social activist, and an author. I would add to that, I think, and a mover and shaker. We're talking about the situation in which the Minister of Works and Transport has said that international tenders will soon go out for the development of a transportation plan for Trinidad and Tobago. He was speaking at the Parliament's Standing Finance Committee, in which he explained various aspects of his ministry's expenditure for 2022 and 2023, the fiscal year. And Orapooch East MP Dr. Rudal Monilal questioned Mr. Sidanan about the cost of this plan. He noted that under the Manning-led administration, there was a $500 million study for a rapid rail system. There's more to that, but we want to bring in our guest now to talk about it. And I wanted to start by going back to that $500 million plan, which was developed by some French experts on the matter, and they tried they held discussions around the country about it. It was acrimonious in some cases, but it never got to see the light of day. So where do we start with this question of a new transportation plan for the country? What are we missing? What should be there for the better understanding of the people? Dr. Kublal Singh, good to see you.
Good morning, Mr. Johnson. How are you?
Very good, thanks.
Good to see you. I like your glasses. It makes you look very solid and serious.
Thank you very much. You look very well yourself.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm not an environmentalist. I know they like to call me an environmentalist, but I'm not. What I usually say is that you have to, when you're doing any large-scale development, you have to add into your account book your ecological assets, because they're very real assets, and the community assets and the social assets and so on. So it's basically economics and development. That's basically my forte, as it were.
Right, but I think you got that name from that title from particularly from journalists who, I suppose, they were paying attention and giving homage to some of the issues in which you stood up. I mean, at the threat of your own life. You're going back to that the project about expanding and extending the highway to Point 14, that piece in Laramie in the Gulf of Paria, and other matters like that, right? So,
are we going to talk about the COP 27 or 28? Are we going to talk about it as well?
Well, you could raise it if you like, but the question is addressing this latest plan for transportation to fix our transportation problems and challenges in the country. Yeah.
So, I mean, we have to commend the government. I mean, they're making a fresh start, it seems. The minister revealed he disclosed in his statement before the select committee that they're going to engage a bank. I don't know if they're engaging the bank or the bank is engaging them. So we would first like to know, why did you choose this bank? There are many banks which fund such projects. The Chinese banks fund such projects. The Chinese themselves have an initiative, a road and belt initiative. So why are you going with this particular bank? And it is very important because when we were building the David to Montezuma Highway and the San Fernando to Point 14 highways, they went to a bank, the IDB, and the IDB advised them not to build those highways. What you need to do, you need to extend, and expand the roadway system and to do repairs to the system. All right, and they didn't do that. They decided not to take banking money at all, and they decided to fund it out of our own treasury. And that included a lot of waste, a lot of squandermania, a lot of corruption, a lot of blunders. They decided to establish a commission of inquiry which has not met. So the government has a history with Carney, with the Master Gas Plan, with Petrotrin, with the gas monetization project, of wasting these large sums of money. So I think it's very important to have a kind of independent oversight body or committee. So I've written to the minister asking him to be part of an independent oversight team to manage all aspects of this project, because it's a huge project. We're talking about building transportation system. It involves air transport, road transportation, sea transportation, road transportation, bicycles, perhaps electrical buses and cars. And you need to have independent oversight. I don't trust a small group of technocrats and bureaucrats within ministries to run this project. There has to be transparency, I think, it's my belief. And there has to be a monitoring from the very beginning, from certification to conception, to the whole process before it collapses again, as other projects have collapsed.
So what is your suggestion as to this other sort of arm for interrogating the project? Besides, you say you don't trust it.
Yes, I've written to the minister asking him to be part of the process. If it is that he agrees, I would probably call another person. For example, there is Dr. Patrick Watson, there is Mary King, there is I can't remember his name, but a number of independent experts in the matter, development experts, for example, James Armstrong, to assist the government free of charge to do oversight on the project.
Yeah, and he was called in at the heights of the controversy about the project for going to Point 14, right?
Yeah, well, they did a report for the government, and the government paid them almost $1 million. It's called the Armstrong Report. And then the government went on to reject the report and not abide by it. And that led to a whole different kinds of series of consequences, including hydrological fallouts, including corruption, because they simply did not abide by the report. The report gave a template for development. It said, if you want to go on a large-scale project, you do A, B, C, D, E. And because they didn't want to go through that rigorous template, they made a lot of blunders, and the public has to pay for it, because remember that highway is coming out of treasury money, your money, not banking money.
There always is the question, you talk about corruption as being endemic to what we do in public works in Trinidad and Tobago. It's always difficult to get behind it. So we hear these allegations about corruption, but nobody gets brought up for it. Nobody you know, is pinpointed and seen to pay for it. Why is that?
Well, Mr. Johnson, I can't answer that question at all. You'll have to answer that question. I think the criminal justice system needs to be reformed. Right now there is legislation, but the legislation to hold big fish or big blunderers for assets, and they have blundered a lot of assets. For example, the Master Gas Plan, where I know, Mr. Johnson, you remember that, where they wanted to build 14 heavy gas-based industries, 5 industrial estates, all of that collapsed, and they wasted billions of dollars, the 2 smelters and so on, all right? And nobody has to pay for it. They just go off, go off into the wilderness. Malcolm Jones, for example, in the gas monetization project in Petrotrin, he was brought before the courts, and then he was given a bribe. So, you know, we need to improve and to reform the criminal justice system to capture white-collar criminals. That's basically it, I believe.
Yeah, and you said you've written to the relevant authorities to be included on this team that will look at this thing. And
there is no team. No, there is no team. So I want to know, why did they choose that bank? You know, Mr. Johnson, when you come into office, the bankers approach you. They are global bankers.
This is the Development Bank of Latin America.
Yeah, they sell money like any other bank. There are hundreds of banks selling money for infrastructure projects. So I want to know, what are the conditionalities attached to this bank? If you say you're going with this bank, why are you going with this bank? What are the conditions? So we don't know what are the conditions that the banks are setting. So it's very important as the first response from the government to tell the public what are the conditionalities, because this is very important. Because there are very, very many competing banks, and banks have different conditions. And we want to know whether the bank has the capacity, for example, to survey the project thoroughly. For example, hydrology. If you need to mitigate the impacts of global warming, you need to understand the behavior of the water. You have to understand the behavior of the hydrology before you do any kind of hydraulics. So will that be a great factor in developing a transportation system?
And how is this Development Bank of Latin America different probably from the IDB, which is an inter-American agency for that kind of thing?
Well, I don't know much about this bank at all. That's why I'm asking questions. I know about the IDB. I know it has funded a lot of projects in Trinidad and Tobago, but I'm not so sure about this CAF banking. We don't know about them at all. I don't know much about them. I know they're affiliated with the World Economic Forum. Now, the World Economic Forum is a bunch of globalists, meaning that they are people who operate outside of the remit of state power. Large foreign corporations which hound assets in countries such as ours. They hound your ecological assets, your social assets, your financial assets, your community assets, your resource assets, and they do this through banking. That is why you have to be very, very careful about choosing your bankers. And so that's one of the first questions that we asked the minister. I submitted a list of 10 questions to him. For example, in terms of reference, what is it going to be like? Is it going to be transparent? What if there are blunders? Who pays for it? Or there are time lapses? Who pay for it? So you have to choose your bank well. And you have to know what are the conditions that the banks set. And you have to know what are the banking agendas. And that is why from the very inception we need to ask these questions, and we need to hold governments and small groups of officials within the system to account.
When do you expect to get a response?
Well, I hope before Christmas. I hope to get a response. You know, Mr. Johnson, I've been talking to governments on Caroni. You were there, Caroni. We developed a beautiful report for them, 57 experts, and we were ignored where they went for Master Gas Plan. So you lost Caroni with all of its assets, its buffalo, its rice, its milk, its orchards, its transportation system, its research, its workers, its competence. And then you also lost on the front, the Master Gas Plan front as well. You lost all of that. So you achieved nothing. There has been no real serious development in Trinidad and Tobago for the last 20, 25 years. Yeah? And so Kubla Singh has been talking to governments, okay, you're going to Sandaka industries, you want to build housing here, don't build housing here. It's not a good place to build housing. The governments continually ignore Kubla Singh and others like Kubla Singh. So I wouldn't be surprised if we ignored. And if we ignore, well, let's see what happens then. I don't know what will happen then, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah. And you said, from what you said, my conclusion is that you thought that the Chinese bank with whom we have some kind of a relationship. There's some projects and initiatives going through there, that they would have been a better fit for this?
I don't know who's a better fit, because I have not seen the terms of reference. So, but what I'm saying that you need to choose your banks carefully. All right, because the Chinese banks themselves have lots of disadvantages. The Chinese themselves want to fund the entire project, run the entire project, execute the entire project with a certain amount of local content, and you can run the system for about 40 years, and then the Chinese hand it back to you free of charge after they have taxed you over a period of 40 years. So they are different systems. All right? So we want to know if this, because this is a large system, this is going to transform the whole economy, the whole culture of Trinidad and Tobago in future. Yeah? Because of the stop train in the 1960s that transformed the whole culture and went into internal combustion economy. That transformed the whole economy. You see what's happening today. What's happening today is hell in the coconut shell traffic. Yeah? What's happening, and that's a terrible, terrible thing. It's devastating, uneconomic. And so we want to make sure that you prepare the proper foundation. You know, you start on the right footing. You do it properly. And governments are not in the habit of doing this, and they've wasted billions of dollars. And we need to ensure that they do it transparently, and they do it objectively, and they do it with sound economic and smart economic thinking.
Yeah, so nothing from that plan which came up with the rapid rail system can be salvaged. So that is $500 million that went through the chute.
That's the question. That's the question. We asked them. We say, okay, you spent $100 million on this rapid rail. You spent a huge amount of money for flooding and Port of Spain, and nothing came out of it. You see? So are we going to rehash the same thing? Are we going to have the same agents? Are we going to waste the money? So we want to know from the Minister of Works and his bureaucrats and technocrats. We want to have a foresight. We want to have independent foresight and oversight of this plan, how it's going forward, how it's going to be executed, how it's going to be completed, and what are the conditionalities. It's very, very, very important, extremely important.
Okay. You say my understanding is that you're hedging your bets as to when and, well, if and when you'd get a response, and even if it's a response that you think meets the requirements that you expect.
Well, I submitted a list of 10 questions. I do not know if the minister will respond. He doesn't have a history of responding. We did go to him. He did call us in for a meeting with respect to the highway route movement. We did meet with him. He did promise to consult with us before starting works between Davie and Mount Desir. And he didn't consult with us. He gave out contracts. He started the project. He has built between Davie and Mount Desir, it's 9 miles. He started 1 mile of it. They haven't completed it. He has paid money to contractors. He has not paid money to landowners. There has been a lot of corrupt dealings with compensation practices. And he never consulted with us. We took him to court. The court ruled, yes, that he was wrong. He ought to have consulted with us. But the court decided that the highway ought to go ahead because they has already spent so much money on contractors' fees and so on. So he doesn't have a good history of consulting and talking.
Yeah, so you would maintain this activism here now because you think it's important to do that?
Well, it's important also to join with others because it's just me alone. You know what I mean? I'm a single individual, but I'm sure that the national community ought to be interested in this, given a history of squander with large-scale projects. We've always really mishandled them, and without exception, we have. I mean, even the airport, you know, what's happening to the airport, what's happening to Mr. Jack Warner. All of these are related to large-scale infrastructure projects. You know?
All right, but we gotta leave it there, sir, and see what comes out on the other side. So you would, well, let me just see if we could, if you want to respond to or comment at all on anything having to do with the summit that just concluded, the COP27.
Well, it's just that I don't think Trinidad and Tobago has a strategy for transitioning to a green economy. It's a wonderful prospect. The Chinese are some of the worst polluters in the world, but they themselves are the largest producers of solar cells. They're the largest builders of the green economy. And we have to transition, and we're not transitioning at all. It's a wonderful future for young people who can build the skills to build cells, to build batteries, to build storage facilities, to build transmission, to build power plants, to replace. Right now, we consume about 8,000 gigawatts per hour per year, hours per year energy, and we have to shift the energy equation. You know, we have to move from fossil fuel. As you decline in the use of fossil fuel, you go up with the use of the green technologies, and there's a wonderful future there. Trinidad and Tobago is now facing the first impacts of the climate crisis. I don't want to go through that, probably don't have time. But basically, you're going to have more flooding, you're going to have more landslides, you're going to have more storms, and we need to defend ourselves against and mitigate ourselves against those impacts. So we're not doing much mitigation, and we're not doing much transitioning. You see, we're still stuck on the old Ken Julian agenda of gas and more gas and more gas. And there are tremendous opportunities awaiting us for a new economy, and we're not yet taking it. All the other countries, for example, Norway, Sweden, and so on, they've switched to green technologies, and most, I think 100 or maybe 90-something% of their economies are run by new, green, sustainable technology. So we have to get on that bandwagon, and we have to do the right thing. We're not doing it, we're sleeping.
Yeah, but yet the UN Secretary General said that we are on a highway to climate disaster, and our feet are still on the accelerator.
Well, it's very difficult for the countries to agree, because they all have different population configurations, different strategies, different economic development. So, for example, Russia produces an abundant amount of natural gas, but Russia is being threatened by the whole of NATO. So you're not going to tell Russia you can't produce natural gas. So they have to produce natural gas, and they have to sell it to China, they have to sell it to India, because they're the largest consumers of energy on the planet. Britain is now talking about energy independence, as Trump spoke about. And they're talking about doing more and more mining in the North Sea, and they're talking about building a power plant, which should not just announce that. So different countries have different problems. Okay, so it's very difficult for them to transform immediately from a fossil fuel economy to a green economy. So it's very difficult to get them to agree to the same thing. So they have to keep making general pledges. But what is more important is that whatever you do, whatever your configuration, you have to get on the track of mitigation, which is very important, because the people who suffer most from the impacts are the fishermen, the farmers, the people in David and Mondsey where they've built embankments, the people who suffer from flooding impacts, they're the ordinary people. You understand? And so you have to get on the train of mitigation, and it requires a constitutional and political response. And you have to get into the train of technology, introducing the technology to transition to the new economy. So the reason why you can't really have any sort of solid and clear and defining and very specific pledge is because everybody's energy configuration and strategies are very different, because the political circumstances are extraordinarily different.
All right, so thank you very much. We're going to have to leave it there. You're always very...
Thanks, Mr. Johnson. I hope I can get some help with the video asking the government for some answers with respect to the National Transportation Plan.
All right.
All right, thanks a lot.
Well, let's hope that this is an exercise in that direction. Let's see what happens.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Johnson. God bless you.
You're very welcome, Dr. Wayne Kublasing. Well, let's take a quick look, begin a quick look around the region now. We want to go to this story, which says that the British Trade Commissioner to Latin America and the Caribbean has indicated that trade between Guyana and the UK has increased by almost 50%. We have a report.
British Trade Commissioner to Latin America and the Caribbean, Jonathan Knott, has indicated that trade between Guyana and the United Kingdom has increased by almost 50% during the final quarter of this year.
I think we're in a really exciting moment, because the trade between the UK and Guyana has grown by 50% in the 4 quarters up until this last quarter.
According to the UK's Department for International Trade, as of the 2nd of November, total trade in goods and services, exports plus imports, between the UK and Guyana was £750 million in the 4 quarters to the end of 2022, an increase of 45.9%. It was explained that total UK exports to Guyana amounted to £454 million, while UK imports exports from Guyana amounted to just over £296 million. Guyana is the UK's 90th largest trading partner, accounting for 0.1% of total UK trade. The Trade Commissioner said the UK-Guyana Partnership Agreement, which was signed on Wednesday, together with the Enhanced Partnership Agreement with CARIFORUM, augurs well for Guyana. Under the UK-Guyana Partnership Agreement, the two sides are expected to form a joint working group, which is intended to lay the foundation for increased commercial partnership in the areas of infrastructure, social housing, education, health, agriculture, agri-tech and technology, among other areas. Mr. Knott said the UK is ready to meet the needs of Guyana and will deliver high quality of goods and services as part of the long-term partnership.
We would like to introduce quality UK companies to Guyana, companies who have delivered before with experience, companies who have delivered in Latin America and the Caribbean, companies with cutting-edge technology and solutions, so that what Guyana can choose from is the best possible selection.
He also said the trade mission currently in Guyana includes some of the UK's leading companies that are excited to bring their expertise here, and the government of the UK will ensure the absolute best is given to the people of Guyana, he said.
Now, our priority is to make sure that those companies bring efficiency, bring complete transparency, but bring quality. And I think that's the other thing I'd stress. The UK is here for the long term. Our companies don't want to come, sell something, deliver a service and then head back home. The companies we brought here in the trade mission this time around, but also the ones we'd like to bring in the future, want to have a long-term relationship with Guyana. They want to make sure that the products, the services, the contribution they make to the development of Guyana lasts for years. Whether it's a road, whether it's a hospital, whether it's a school.
Knott said it is his expectation that the joint working group will define and deliver a time-bound action plan. Meanwhile, the British High Commissioner to Guyana, Jane Miller, deemed the trade mission a success. Already, President Irfaan Ali has indicated that incentives will be offered to companies that invest in Guyana at this time.
At the top of this hour, we take a break. When we come back, we should be talking with Mr. Kenneth Listrop, founder and musical director of the Trinidad and Tobago Youth Philharmonic Orchestra. This is AM Prime. Stay with us.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Here's your chance to win a brand new Mazda CX-30, courtesy Movietown. Simply spend $200 or more at dbetstoys.com, Movietown, Port of Spain. Promotion ends November 12th.
Visit the store, you better shop online. You better call us now, I'm telling you why. dbetstoys.com is Movietown, Port of Spain.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity, from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
All right, welcome back to the program. So that was you conducting. Yes. All right, and this is Mr. Listrop. He is director of this organization, the Trinidad and Tobago Youth Philharmonic. It's the only youth symphony orchestra in Trinidad and Tobago and the largest in the English-speaking Caribbean. the Companies Act of 1995. It was duly registered under that, and we are committed to becoming, that's him talking here on behalf of the organization, we are committed to becoming the Caribbean's premier music education center and have been a pivoting force that nurtured and mentored hundreds of Caribbean youth to achieve tertiary level excellence in the musical arts over the past 2 decades. Furthermore, this is dedicated to promoting and encouraging public knowledge and appreciation of orchestral music. The TTYP's visionary founder, Mr. Kenneth Listrop, talks about that, and he interviews. We will get to that in a moment, but just welcome you.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Andy.
Good to see you. And before we went on, I was asking you about your brother, because when I first began to become familiar with you, there were two of you.
Yes,
he said
yes.
He's retired now.
Yes, he's retired.
Yes,
So,
Andrew Listrop.
Andrew Listrop, but we never retire from music, you know. Yeah. So I will continue playing music until the good Lord calls me home.
Right, and you've been recognized for your commitment to national development through this field and excellence and investment in the youth in Trinidad and Tobago, when he emerged as one of 5 finalists nominated for the prestigious Angus Stewart Champion Awards.
Yes.
So you were shortlisted for that.
Yes.
So let's talk about your mission.
The whole idea of is to become the premier organization through the Caribbean in the arts, and to leave a lasting legacy for future generations. You know, we are really serious about establishing an orchestral tradition, which it will take around, let's say, around 7 to 10 years to lay the foundation. We just don't want to be some little school renting some building somewhere. We've purchased land, we have architectural drawings. We want to set down a permanent structure that we can continue to build on throughout the years.
Yeah, but you've been doing this for some time, eh?
Since 1999, yes. So this is like approximately 23 years now.
Right, and you've turned out a lot of talented young people.
Yes. Hundreds of students, some involved still in music, internationally, locally, and some have gone on to other professions, you know, and their own calling and so on. But music is what you call lifelong learning. You never forget to play the instrument, and it's a real gift. There are many things you can do in life that you can do up to a certain age, like say play football. You can't play football at 70 years old, you know. Yeah, but you could play music in your 90s. So it's this real lifelong learning that you can continue and contribute to society and keep your brain active.
Yeah, I remember being at one of these occasions when you were there conducting, but talking to the audience about the importance of this. And so I think you said that at that time there's almost no community in Venezuela where there isn't a...
Oh, yes. Oh, gosh. We get our inspiration from the Venezuelans. You know, I've been there. I've seen the program. I've seen how they are able to do more with less. You know, I actually visited one in San Sebastian, and it's a little galvanized structure and dirt floor and children crammed in and no air condition, but you should hear the music that was coming out from these impoverished youth in Venezuela. It's a life-exchanging experience if you go to Venezuela and see their hundreds of youth orchestras with visiting conductors from all the different provinces and so on. It's a life learning experience. I also visited Dr. Antonio Abreu, I think is his name, the founder of the El Sistema, and he understood that, you know, what the relationship we were trying to establish with Venezuela was something that was going to be lasting. So we have a very strong relationship with the Venezuelan team, and they would come every year and assist us. This, around COVID time, you know, we were restricted, but we hope to continue that relationship in 2023 and going forward.
What do you think that kind of culture mediates in what we are fed about the social, economic, and political situation in Venezuela?
Well, my statistic may not be up to date, yeah, but I know that they took like 500,000 children off the streets in Venezuela through music and transform their lives. Some of them are now professionals in Europe and the United States and so on. And the United States has actually taken, parts of the United States has actually taken El Sistema as a model. But they no longer call it El Sistema, they now call it Fesnohiv. But they have really transformed children's lives, you know, getting them to use their time constructively, not liming around the block and so on, but using their brain, using their creative powers in music. Yes.
You say, what is it called now? Fesnohiv?
Fesnohiv. I don't know the translation in English, but yes, Fesnohiv, yeah. Before it was called the System of Youth and Children Orchestras and Choirs. That's before it became Fesnohiv, yes.
Yeah. So you have a sense of, you keep track of how many young people get onto this track and how you turn them out? Like, you're talking generations here, right?
Yeah, we over the 23 years, we probably have about 2,000 to 3,000 students that have come through our program. Some are involved locally in different genres and so on, whether it be soca or whatever they want to do. Some stay in the classical fields, some are in England, some are in the United States and so on, in Germany, and we keep in contact with them, they tell us what they are doing. I could think of one, Mr. Harley Robertson. He started us doing it down bass with us. I think he's in England performing with a professional orchestra in England.
So the sisters who play the violin, and I see them now, they've come back out. They seem to have sort of gone into recess for a bit, but they are out now in quite a few functions that I go to, and so they are.
Yes. The string for Trinity, the music, the orchestra for Trinity in Trinidad is extremely small. I mean, we are especially among the youth. So I tend to know all the musicians who either collaborate with us or come through our program.
Xavier Strings.
Yes. Yeah, they played. They were part of the early genesis of the youth orchestra in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, so they were just a little more than tots at the time.
Yes. Yes.
And their mother is their manager.
Yes. She plays the double bass. Yes.
Right.
Very musical family.
So the value of this to the people who get engaged in it and to the country.
On a whole, the arts really bring out the humanity in people, because you in the arts you're learning about beauty. You're learning about structure and form, and especially the history of the music of Western civilization, built on the Western scale, and the role of the church and how music evolved through the ages. Our watchwords are play, worship, and bless, because we understand that music is really a gift from God. Western music is rooted in the church. This is why the great musicians like Handel and Bach and Vivaldi, there's so much religious music written for God's glory. When you think about the pipe organ is used exclusively in churches, except for like horror movies, but otherwise the pipe organ was literally made for worship in the church. So in our setting, we try to inculcate in the students, we play skillfully. Rooted in the book of Psalms 33, we play skillfully. So you have to hone in on your skills. You have to practice. We play skillfully. We worship God with our music, and we bless our fellow men. Our program is about recreation, not recreation. So when people come to our concerts, they leave refreshed. Our program is a program for the oldest to the youngest. It's just clean, fun, and beauty in all its forms.
As you talk, I'm taken back to, I was in Suriname some months ago, went to the CARICOM meeting, and part of the arrangements with some of us, and I was in a group, and we went to tour a church, Catholic church in Paramaribo, and they celebrate the fact that there's a pipe organ there for hundreds of years.
Wow. Okay. Yes.
Talk about the importance of
Of
the pipe
course.
organ.
Yes. The pipe organ was very. I mean, I've read about it, so I'm well under. I have a great understanding of it. The pipe organ is really meant to describe the majesty of God, the transcendence and the majesty of God. That's why you look and you see this big, imposing structure, in the church, and with the pipes and all, thousands of pipes, and all coming together and harmonizing. Yeah.
In fact, it was a Jewish place, a Jewish synagogue and so on.
Yes, right.
So, to what extent this is a mediating force that you think more young people should tap into, as opposed to what is available for them to get involved in?
Mm-hmm. The whole idea, I support all the arts, all, whether it is dance, whether it's visual arts, performing arts. And we need this in the Caribbean. We need to lay a very strong foundation for music education in the Caribbean. Now, I think of our national instrument, and I love the national instrument. But you know, most of the pan men in Trinidad and Tobago cannot read music. If we teach and we start with the youth and the children to get them to read music, you put any score before them and they will read it, and they can grow up into, teenagers and adults and so on, and it will make things easier. If you had to do arrangements, put the score in front of them. You could put any score from any arranger. They will read it. They wouldn't need to spend months or, memorizing. So the importance of, doing it formally and blending it with the creativity of the panmen and their arrangements. Because, some fantastic arrangements. But you want that to be able to transfer it from generation to generation. And if everything is in here and not on script, you can't do that. All right? This is why we are able to play the works of Beethoven and Bach and Tchaikovsky, because it's done in black and white. All right? And that's why we have to start with the young people. And we have to start with them. We start them from age 5. Okay? Venezuela starts them from 3 years old. Yes.
But most arrangers have to be able to they have to have a proficiency in reading music. You got it? Yes, to some extent, to a large extent, yes, the arrangers. But if there's collaboration with more people who've had formal training, then you can listen to that. I do it, on a smaller scale. You bring it to me, and I can listen to you, and I will score the whole thing for you and hand it back to you and say, this is what your music sounds like and looks like on a score. Yeah. So, to what extent are you involved with the music school at the University of Trinidad and Tobago?
Not very much. Our program is so, I'm just one person, and our program is so, it is so demanding, and I think that we are trying to lay a foundation, and between, in the years to come, we can see that moving and benefiting both the University of Trinidad and Tobago and the University of the West Indies. There must be a feeder program, and the feeder program is the seed. And unless we establish a seed and a feeder program, then we are not going to be able to accomplish much. Yeah.
So is there, you said Christmas is coming up and so on.
Yes.
Do you have any any kinds of outings, any kinds of performances?
All right, so this is where we are. This weekend here, November 26th and 27th, we have our first post-pandemic concert performance. It's called Christmas at the TVs. It's TVs. It's a pun, right? It's, what we do. So I will start with the word Christmas. The program is structured into two sections. The first section, the second section, sorry, it is the whole message of Christmas, the coming of Jesus Christ into the world, how he changed the world, how he influenced every area of learning, from the arts to medicine to so many different ways that we are very unaware of. Our whole value system of the West is really based on the life of Jesus Christ, right? This is something I've studied and learned and read deeply into. So we celebrate his coming into the world. There's a song that says, "O holy night, the stars are brightly shining. You know, long lay the world in sin and error pining till he appeared." He changed the way people get married, made it marriage between one man and one woman, obliterating polygamy and other forms and so on, and so many things Jesus Christ changed and impacted the world. So the second half of the concert features on all that music. We're doing the Hallelujah chorus, we're doing contemporary gospel music, we're doing arrangements of your favorite Christmas carols with the orchestra playing it. We're doing a little bit of parang and orchestra. Yeah. And then the other part of the concert is I have arranged approximately around 12 TV themes from the 60s and 70s. You know, we're on the same age, so you know, Get Smart, Ironside, Mannix, Thunderbirds, Charlie's Angels, Genie. I could go on and on, right? And some of the best music is written for TV and movies. And we had a concert in August, and we just did about 4 of them, Falcon Crest and the Dallas, and the audience didn't want to get off their seats. They were asking for more, so we are giving them more. So it is by public demand that we are having this Christmas at the TVs.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, you know.
Right? So it's Christmas at the TVs. We are blending the TV themes and also the message of Christmas. This is in aid of paying off for the land that we are purchasing in Tunapuna. We are in the process of purchasing 4 lots of land to construct our music academy. Right? We have all the designs and so on. We just want to know that we own all the land so we can have the plans approved and then push forward in fundraising to erect this structure.
The Listrab Music Academy.
No, it's going to be called the Trinidad and Tobago Youth Philharmonic Academy.
Okay, it's Trinidad and Tobago Youth Philharmonic Academy.
Yes. Yes, that's what it's going to be called. It's going to be the first one of its kind in the Caribbean.
And when you sort of projecting for it to be opened and launched and so on?
I'm a man of faith.
Yeah.
So our objective is to pay off for the land by the end of 2023.
Okay.
And by 2025, that building must be up and operating and running.
And
yes.
And you have ideas about plans to how you're going to fund it to get.
Oh yes. We will be targeting both locally, internationally, letting them see that we have been serious. 23 years is quite a long time to be pursuing a vision. It means that the people who are involved in this, certain kind of people that could have this level of commitment and devotion, and they're serious. So when you put your money into this, you know it's something lasting. It's not a white elephant we're going to construct. It's going to be used. It's going to be impacting the youth. Actually, the land is in the heart of a crime-ridden area of Tunapuna, Fairley Street, because we want to reach the youth in Fairley Street. Those little children in Fairley Street will come there. If we can change the children, we will change society. Sadly, the adults might be too far gone. But if we could start with the children and bring them in and see them learn beauty, get them to learn about God, let them to appreciate the arts, let them understand that when they're playing music, were it not for the life of Jesus Christ, we wouldn't have the Hallelujah chorus. Handel, just to interject here, there's a great story. Handel wrote that the Messiah in 21 days. And it is the longest work written to any religious personage. Fanny Crosby, who wrote Blessed Assurance, wrote over 10,000 hymns. One blind woman wrote over 10,000. So I'm talking about a great, great legacy that people don't know, that the nation don't know, that we need to communicate. You could tell my passion, right, Andy?
Spellbinding stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to ask you, is there a point you want to leave with audience watching this?
Yes. We want the whole of Trinidad and Tobago to come out to Napa on Saturday, the 26th of November at 7:30 p.m. and on Sunday at 5:30 p.m. The tickets are very reasonable. We probably have the cheapest Christmas concert this time of the year throughout Trinidad and Tobago. It's $150. We want to sell out Napa for both days, Saturday and Sunday. And so we are appealing to the audience. You can get tickets at Napa's box office. You can get tickets at in Valpark, Anthony's Florals. You can get tickets at Quality Station behind Massey Store, St. Augustine, at UE Bookshop, or from the members of the orchestra, or call me, 751-6297.
751-6297.
Yes, 751-6297.
Kenneth Listrop of the Trinidad and Tobago, well, the man, one of them behind the Trinidad and Tobago Youth Philharmonic Orchestra. We take you out with this bit. Let me just tell you, at the top of the hour, we have news and followed by today's edition of Talking Point. Let me just show you the front page of today's Newsday. We do that here on a regular basis. That's the Newsday Trinidad and Tobago. That's the Newsday Tobago. Here's how we go out on this edition of the program.
The Trinidad and Tobago Youth Philharmonic presents Christmas at the TVs. Saturday, 26 November, 7:30 p.m. and Sunday, 27th November, 5:30 p.m. at the National Academy for the Performing Arts.
Come and enjoy surprise arrangements by the illustrious Kenneth Listrop, as well as Christmas classics backed by popular demand, your favorite television themes of yesteryear,
and contemporary gospel music by the TTYP and guest performers, Evangelion singers and band. Bring the entire family Saturday 26th November and Sunday 27th November. Let us celebrate the reason for the season.
For details and tickets, contact us at 751-6297, 476-8897 or 869-8897, or visit our social media blades. See you there.